Unfortunately, today there are no handouts or swag, so I'll just start that off right away. But thank you for everybody who was involved yesterday. Today we are going to continue with our theme of stories of faith. And the idea of stories of faith is to help us understand that there are so many different ways that people walk into their faith, into their Christianity, to the way that they serve God, to the way they understand it. In the diversity of the faith, there is still unity because of the doctrines that we hold, the major doctrines that we hold. And it's great to hear these stories of faith because you start to see how unique it is for each person, but yet, when we see these things, we get to understand that we can grow into a larger understanding of our faith and our understanding of Christianity. And our stories of faith are around three things. Yesterday we talked about belief. We heard 5 wonderful stories about what belief meant to them and how it shaped who they are and how they see the world. Today we're going to be talking about belonging, and tomorrow we're going to be looking at behaviors. Behaviors in ways that you act, the ways that you see the world, and everything else. Also the structures that we have around our life that comes from faith. And so today is going to be about belonging. Belonging is so important because each one of us has an innate desire to be accepted, to be brought together, to be in a relationship with other people. We all desire to have people that know us, that see us for who we are, that accept us for the way that we are, and want to help us to become the better versions of ourselves. But one of the interesting things about belonging is that when we belong to something, we don't just get to force ourselves upon it. We bring ourselves, and it's a give and take. We have this give and take that we have to give ourselves, but we also have to accept the other person. And so in some ways, we have to be willing and humble to bring other people in and also to give of ourselves. And when we are accepted, we find out that how much it means to us and how we're seen and we're known, that it makes us feel like we can be more of ourselves. And we're able to not have to hide behind masks and behind all the things that our society tells us to do. And this is a part of Christianity. We want to bear with one another. We want to carry the other person's burdens. We want to be forgiven and to forgive, because forgiveness is holistic, as Jesus would teach. And we're able to be who we are even when it's messy. Even when we're looking really good and everything's going well, but also when it's messy. When we're not our best. When we're not able to be all dressed up and look just right and do all the right things and get all the right grades and accomplish all the things. It's like when you're wearing those just gross sweatpants. That you're wearing them and the people still accept you. It's when you just can't do it that day, but people are there to help you along. And so this is a sense of belonging that we're going to talk about today. That we're able to accept people in their best moments and also some of their worst, and to lift them up. And so we're going to start off our time with prayer. John?
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together today to learn about belonging in faith. In this busy time of year, thank you for the opportunity to reflect on and appreciate bigger questions of faith and its role in our lives. In our culture of always looking forward to the next test, game, or concert, help us appreciate now, this week, this assembly, today. Especially for seniors, help us make the most of these last few weeks, savoring the time we have left with kindness, gratitude, and open hearts. Thank you for our communities and spaces of belonging, in classrooms, practices, and rehearsals, and for the teachers and coaches working to build them. As we continue through this week and the end of the year, help us strengthen these communities by lifting each other up, offering grace, and remembering that in faith or in our other communities, we belong. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, John. Dean. Not often we get clapping for prayer, but thank you. We're going to be doing our stories of
back in freshman year, I struggled a bit with not knowing exactly where I belonged. No matter how crowded and full my life appeared to be, inside I felt alone. I was trapped in a cycle of feeling lost and broken, stuck on the outside, and I didn't know where I fit in or who to turn to. We all know this feeling, and I now know that I wasn't actually alone in my desire for a sense of belonging at all. So the first question that I would like to ask is, what does it feel like to really belong? To me, it was finding people that met me right where I was and made me feel heard and seen. I found a place where I felt safe. It turns out I discovered that belonging in Christian community in a way that I'd never felt before. Grounding myself in relationships with people who had shared faith and values completely rewrote the way I felt about myself and how I viewed the world around me. I learned that surrounding myself with encouragement, honesty, and humility rooted me with confidence in where I was meant to be. I felt safe, loved, and known thanks to people who loved me and reminded me that I belong in God's community. Above all, I've learned that trusting in how much I belong in God's community encourages me to make others feel welcome and loved in the same way. Which brings us to my second question: how can you share this belonging with others? In this chapter of my life, as a senior and as the oldest sibling in my family, I try to share this belonging with others by being approachable and investing in younger people. I strive to be authentic, vulnerable, and honest about my story. Especially in the past year, I have found an unparalleled joy in sharing belonging with others. It has deepened so many of my relationships as I make new friends and grow along old ones. I have celebrated with some and mourned with others, but through all the ups and downs, I have felt extremely grateful for how present God is on our campus and how much our Christian community has flourished. In my search for belonging, I have also learned about the significance of building relationships with people outside of my friend group, in different grades, and even with teachers or coaches. I have found some of my favorite people at FMF on Friday mornings, at Christian life retreats, or even in Greece with Charting Stand Term. Spending time with these people, despite being in different circles, challenges me to branch out beyond my comfort zone of familiar people, and some of my most special and valuable friendships are rooted in these different parts of our Christian community on campus. Additionally, the security that I have found in relationships with those who share my faith has shifted the way I approach others that don't. I have learned about the importance of sharing belonging beyond the walls of our Christian life events, and try to apply this by treating everyone with respect, kindness, and curiosity. In this sense, my faith has impacted my sense of belonging because I feel anchored in Christian community and encouraged to pursue connections and belonging in all the different parts of my life at Westminster. Thank you.
We're going to continue our stories of faith with Mr. Maynard, who's going to come and share about his sense of belonging with church and his faith.
Thank you, Reverend Charney, for asking me to share with all of you today. Most of you know I teach in performing arts here at school, but what you might not know is that on Sunday mornings I play piano and organ at Beach Street Presbyterian Church. In fact, before coming to Westminster, I spent about 15 years as a full-time church music director. I worked in various Christian churches, mostly Presbyterian, conducting choirs, playing organ, and creating musical experiences designed to help people connect spiritually and with one another. The idea of belonging and connection in a faith community is significant to me personally. I happen to be raised in a Presbyterian church where I felt like I was a full member of the community, where I belonged. This was partly because my entire family went to this church. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my grandparents. Not only did my family get together for birthdays and for holidays, but we all got together at church once, maybe sometimes twice a week. But even more so, the greater community of members at the church felt like an extension of my family. and showed up each week just as they showed up for the tradition of church each week. They were showing up for each other. And yes, while church was about encountering the divine and exploring the spiritual, so much of it was about participating as part of a community, being together. This is one of the things that I've come to appreciate about the faith communities where I've worked as an adult. At their best, they offer a place where you can show up as you are, whether you're feeling happy, sad, tired, joyful, annoyed, whatever. You can find a family of friends where you're seen and heard and supported, but also in a reciprocal manner, you can provide that for others. Come as you are with curiosity and an open heart, and be present to serve, be ready to serve, and be present. Matthew 20:26 in the Bible reads, "Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant." This idea of servant leadership resonates with me. It shifts the focus from what can I get to what can I do. And when we do, we often find more purpose and possible connection than maybe we would have imagined. I think making music with others can be an act of generosity. You bring your voice, you bring your instrument, you bring your energy, and not just for your own enjoyment and fulfillment. A lot of times in my life, it is for my own enjoyment and fulfillment, but really for others as well. And maybe beyond that, just sometimes showing up and working at something difficult, doing the thing that we don't necessarily want to do, or coming to the place we don't always necessarily want to be. Sometimes that is the generous thing we can do, especially when others might need us. And even when it doesn't necessarily feel that others might need us. How often is that the case in school, in your classes, on your teams? In church, music helps people process grief at funerals, celebrate joy at weddings, and simply stay grounded in weekly routines. It brings people together in a powerful, emotional way. And I believe that's also where belonging happens, in shared sacred moments. Whether your shared sacred moments happen in a faith community, in a volunteering organization, or on your team or club here at school, I think cultivating and maintaining a spirit of generosity is one of the best ways to develop a sense of belonging. What things can you bring to the table, be them big or little? Who can you be a listening ear for? What can you do? Can you offer help? Has anyone here in the room heard of a man named Mr. Rogers? Okay, a lot of people, probably teachers my age. There's a movie that came out about him in 2019, played by Tom Hanks. If you're unfamiliar, Mr. Rogers was a popular TV personality during the time when I was growing up, and was known for his weekly children's show, which shared messages to kid viewers about love and self-worth, dealing with difficult issues, and exploring creativity. Mr. Rogers was also a Presbyterian minister. He was also an organist. And he once said a quote which has become somewhat famous. He said, "When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.' I think faith and music and life asks us to be the helpers, to show up and to serve others, and in the process, find belonging."
We're starting to see belonging as a part of the Christian faith. We see it in the way that Jesus interacted with his disciples. The first thing that he does is go out and find people to live life with, to enjoy meals with, to teach, to train, to push forward. And for 3 years, they lived together, they walked together, they did everything together because it was an important part of his ministry. And his call was for them to continue on what he had started. That it wasn't just that they take, but that they end up giving in the long run. We see this idea of belonging and community all throughout the scriptures. But we also
everyone, or good afternoon at this point. I'm Nigel, and this is Reverend Melanie Vaughn Caldwell, who grew up here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Pastor Melanie received her Master of Divinity from Candler School of Theology at Emory University. And after her ordination in Oakhurst Baptist Church in 2001, Pastor Melanie served as the pastor of Broadneck Baptist Church in Annapolis, Maryland from 2001 to 2007. She holds an undergraduate degree in journalism and mass communication from Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. And prior to attending seminary, she was employed in public relations in the Atlanta Area Council of Boy Scouts of America and as a TV news reporter in Denison, Texas. So welcome, Pastor. We just have a few questions for you to help us learn a little bit more about faith and to help our community. So first and foremost, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from, family, hobbies, just things to help us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you to Reverend Charney and to you, Nigel, for that introduction, and for all the folks that just spoke and did such a wonderful job talking about belonging. And there's so many themes, I think, that we will hear repeated throughout this morning. You did a great job talking about some of the things about where I'm from. I'm from here. I'm from Atlanta. In my adulthood, I've lived a number of different places, but I came back here because it's home. I think it's one of the most diverse, interesting places that I've ever lived, and I'm happy to call it home. I'm married to Lauren, who works here at Westminster in the OIA. She's sitting right here on the front row. We have a rescue dog named Mirabelle and a rescue cat named Isaac. And Isaac's name, some of you might know, is Hebrew for laughter, because Lauren is also what was a pastor in the past, and when she went to seminary, she loved the Hebrew language, and so she wanted to name Isaac Laughter. And as most cats, he does keep us laughing throughout the day as he tries to bully and control the dog throughout the day. You asked about hobbies. I think it's a hobby. I love anything that has to do with the natural world. I love animals. I will stop and meet your dog no matter what I'm doing. I think I know the names of every dog in my neighborhood, but not so much the people. You know, kind of make a veer to meet the with the dogs and cats. I consider myself a student of the civil rights movement and studied Representative John Lewis, who, as many of you know, led that march across the Selma Bridge. He was our U.S. rep for decades until he died fairly recently. I became just completely fascinated by him when I was about 12 years old and read everything I could about him, learned everything I could about him. And when I was an adult in Pasadena, Maryland, I finally got to have lunch with him in the Capitol in D.C., and then get to hear him speak against invasion that the country was planning on. And that's one of my very favorite memories. Yeah.
Well, we are going to move on a little bit more towards the faith, sort of side of our conversation. And just can you share us your personal story with faith, how it's helped you and how it's changed you for the better, your sort of experience with it?
Yeah, my story of faith is that I, like many of us, was born into my faith tradition, but I grew up Baptist here in Atlanta. My parents are they're very cerebral, they're very scientific, they're very kind of, we like everything to be explained. They're good Protestants. They all about reason and ration. And I kind of came into the world wanting to connect with mystery, finding the world magical, wanting to connect with whoever or whatever made me. And so there was this real craving to be in relationship with God, to talk to Jesus, to really explore what I was a part of that's bigger than I am. One really formative moment in my life was when I was 12, and my parents realized that our church, was not as affirming of women as it could have been. And so we changed Baptist churches. When I was 12, we changed to a Baptist church in town that had women deacons, had women ministers. My youth minister was a woman named Gina. groups are formed, everyone knows each other. Those folks have been together since they were in kindergarten. So that was one of those moments where I had that sense of disconnect as well. Like, where do I belong? Do I belong here at church? And one person who made a huge difference for me was my youth minister, Gina, who loved all of us, who really wanted to affirm for us that we belong to each other, we belong to God, we belong to our faith community. And one of my favorite things was so simple, but she would take time during the week to go to the different school districts and meet us for breakfast. And mine was Thursday at Hardee's, and I looked forward to that so much because no matter what was going on in the week, and probably like Reverend Charney is for you all, it was like someone where I knew like this week's been really rough. I'm going to go to this place and someone's going to tell me that they love me and that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's definitely some of the things that Charlie helps us along with.
That's so huge, just to have, sometimes when we're in those moments of disconnect, to have just one person who can say, hey, you belong, you're beloved, you're important. So she was a representative of God for me, just thinking about how much one person makes a difference in our lives. And I continue to call on her, even as a young adult, when I was making job decisions or relationship decisions, I would go back and call her because I knew I could trust her, and I knew she was invested in my life and in the life of all the youth that grew up in our church.
That's wonderful. I mean, it's always incredibly helpful to have somebody in your corner, especially in a space of faith, in a space of, something that you may not be able to explain. I think that's definitely important to have. Sort of a trusted person, mentee, whatever you may call it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, moving on, how long have you been in ministry? I know we talked a little bit about your collegiate history and background, but how long have you personally been in that area?
So I was ordained and started church ministry in 2001, and so that's 24 years now, which is just hard to believe. And that's all been working in churches.
That's wonderful. Sort of circling to our specific, I guess, theme of CW, we're really talking about, like many of our speakers have mentioned, stories of faith. Our Christian Emphasis Week, sort of 3 B's that we've learned from the lens of sociology is belief, belonging, and behavior. So yesterday we had a focus on belief. We had a lot of speakers come up and talk about their personal stories of belief, where it started, how it sort of developed throughout their years and their time with faith. And today we're learning about belonging. And since belonging is such an important part to religion, such an important part to all sort of identities, especially Christianity, like we're mentioning today, can you tell us how your belonging has been a part of your story of faith, how it's helped you, how it's sort of manifested throughout your time with faith?
Yeah, I think I'll start off with talking about kind of the sense of church ministry and how that has taught me about belonging in my life. One of the things, I've heard so many of the speakers right before echo the same things, but it's getting to journey alongside other people who are really in the same place that any of us are at any time. We're living our stories, we're having really rough times in our lives, we're also experiencing joy, and then the mundane, we're really honestly being together, rich things happen in there, but there's something about being part of a faith community where when something really bad happens, you also have been with those folks during the really beautiful moments of their lives. So there's a sense of wholeness in our relationships, a sense of mutuality, which a number of other folks talked about. One of my favorite things about church ministry is the magicalness of seeing people from when getting to watch people grow up. So this year, I'm going to be officiating a wedding of 2 young adults who I got to baptize when they were 12. So
Wonderful.
I'm so excited. And one of them, he was actually a 4-year-old when I was ordained at this church, and in our tradition, everyone in the community lays their hands upon someone who's being ordained. And so I have this sense of Colin when he was 4, ordaining me into ministry, and now this kind of circle that I'm going to get to bless him in his wedding.
That's wonderful.
So
That is
yeah,
amazing.
it's very exciting.
That is, well,
talking about belonging, I think the thing that is really the center part of this that I want to say is that my job, I think of my job as my primary responsibility, getting to tell people and remind people over and over that we belong. That because you are here on this earth, you belong. So you belong, Nigel, every single person in here belongs, I belong, you belong to God, you belong to each other, you just belong, period. And I was talking to this midwife in our congregation this week. Her whole life has been delivering babies, and she said the most amazing thing which really stuck with me. She was talking about this place between when the baby is still in the mommy's tummy and is here but not here, and then when the baby finally arrives, she said, it's like I feel the universe scooching over and making space for this new being. And I love that image so much, the idea that like when you arrive, the universe scooched over and made space for Nigel, and how cool that is. So I think belonging is part of who we are, but I think it's also, I like to talk about it as a spiral. Throughout our journey of faith, sometimes we really get that, like we're super connected and we super feel like we belong, and sometimes we're kind of on the outside of the spiral, and we're disconnected. And that's, I think, what community is about, is bringing us back to that reminder of how much we do belong.
Yes, ma'am. That's wonderful. And I'm sort of following the same belief of belonging, I guess you may say. How's belonging to a community of faith sort of shaped who you are? Sort of your experience and sense with this idea of belonging. How has that helped you, especially in this area of faith?
So when I was a young adult, I think I was really struggling to find a community where I belonged. When I went to college, I kind of stopped going to church, and I came back to Atlanta, and things didn't feel the same. I didn't connect in the same way. So I started volunteering with a church that wasn't my church, but they were serving unhoused people who were in recovery. And that, for whatever reason, in that space, I felt like I belonged. There was, I think it maybe was the vulnerability of being with people who were being very real, because at that point in their lives they had to. And that's why I went to seminary, not to become a minister, but because I wanted to do that kind of work. So my second year at Candler, at Emory, they require you to be a part of a worshiping community for your internship. And I was like, waste of my time. I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to preach. That sounds terrible. I'm going to find a church where they're doing this kind of ministry. So someone told me about this church in Decatur. The church, interestingly, that I'm still at now, they had a recovery program, and at the time, the men, there was a 10-bed program for men who were in recovery and who had been unhoused, who were living in the church. So I met with the pastor, and I tried to tell him, I'm going to do this internship, but I'm only going to work with this program. And thankfully, he kind of overlooked what I'd said and said, no, ministry means being a part of all of the aspects of our life together. But one of the most wonderful things of seeing that ministry, the men's recovery program, grow out of the church life was a watch night service on New Year's Eve. Was one of the first things I was asked to do as an intern, because the men needed a place to have New Year's Eve where there was no substances involved, since they were in recovery. So the church folks and the men that were part of the program, the clients, we got together, we made chili, we played games, and then about 11 o'clock we turned out all the lights, we lit candles, and we started talking about what we were thankful for the past year and what we looked forward to in the coming year. And the next thing we knew, it was 1 a.m. in the morning, and this kind of sacredness had taken over, where we just felt like we belonged to each other. We were in this, within this larger church of belonging
just sort of wrapping up, do you have any last words for the Westminster community, for any of us, about this theme of belonging? You mentioned sort of a lot of great points and a lot of strong advice for us to carry, and is there anything else you'd like to leave us with?
I think it was Shay who started, who talked about when we figure out how we belong, then we have almost a responsibility to bring others into belonging, and that I think is crucial. Within our church community, we belong to each other, but that gives us such a sense of security in going out to the world. So some of our favorite ways to engage beyond ourselves are through our interfaith relationships. So we have a sister congregation that's a Jewish congregation that does one of their highest holy days in our sanctuary, their Shabbat Shara. So they come and they sing and they dance around our Baptist sanctuary, and we get to be a part of it. We get to engage with our Jewish siblings who are teaching us something about their faith and how to have a sense of how God is at work in their lives. We have very good Muslim friends who we get to go to be invited to their iftar dinner at the end of Ramadan, so we get to go to someone's home, and a blanket is spread out on the floor, and the most amazing food is served, and there's children running around. And it just reminds me that God is at work everywhere, and our calling as people of faith is to keep expanding that sense of belonging out into the world. And I think it's that if I have a sense that the universe scooched over when I got here, then how do I encounter every single human being that I meet as someone looking at them and saying, wow, when you arrived, the universe scooched over and made a place for you. And you are here, you are beloved, you belong, and you are here for something unique. You have your own mission and ministry in place in this world. And so once we belong, we have this responsibility to continue to remind others that you too belong. And to be on the lookout for all the ways that God is expanding our sense of belonging.
Well, thank you so much. Teaching us a little bit more about faith, a little bit more about belonging. So
Thank you
appreciate you
so
so
much. This
much.
has been
Let's
wonderful.
have another round of applause. We do have one final story of faith. Braydon Willis is going to come out and talk about his understanding of belonging in his faith. Braydon?
I'd like to start out with a quick anecdote. My dad is friends with a pastor. His name is Randall McNeil. My dad has known Pastor Randall McNeil since I was 3. He worked at Victory Road Church in Norcross until I was 6. Huge church. When I was 6, Pastor Randall told my dad, I want to start my own church, and I want you to help me. And my dad said, okay, I'll help you. Let's do it. So my dad helped Pastor Randall rent out a small space in McDonough, and they turned into a church, and that was the church that I called home for a few years. The church grew in numbers to the point where the small office space that we had rented out, it couldn't house everybody. So Pastor Randall bought an empty warehouse down the street for the church to move into. After the property was ours, being the oldest of my brothers, Pastor Randall came up to me and he said, Braydon, I want you to help me turn this place into a church. I agreed and I got right to work, but certain words from that sentence stuck with me. I want you. The need to belong is universal. Everybody wants to feel heard, seen, and accepted, and appreciated for who they are. Everyone wants to be part of something bigger than themselves. It's simply human nature. When Pastor Randall told me that he wanted my help, he offered me all of those opportunities. When I got to work, I moved materials, I painted walls, I decorated rooms, but most importantly, I did not do it all on my own. I did it with the help of my brothers, my parents, my friends in the children's ministry, the other members of the church, the musicians, the list goes on and on and on. Eventually, the church was complete. I felt a sense of accomplishment, and I built several amazing relationships with people who shared the same values that I did, and who I would continue to grow with. I was a part of a community that walked with me, that loved me even on my worst days, that corrected me when I made mistakes, that I could talk to when I wanted to celebrate or when I needed to grieve. Even when I moved from South Atlanta to Buckhead and started to attend a different church, nothing changed. The same concepts were present. It was simply with different people. Christianity gives everybody the ability to feel heard, accepted, to be part of something bigger than oneself. And importantly, it does not offer these things solely in terms of belief, but evidently through community as well. No matter what, I belong and you belong. The church wants you. To wrap up the story, like I said, we finished the church and it ran strong for a couple of years, but unfortunately, when I was around 11, Pastor Randall started to have some medical issues, though he's fine now. But he sold the building and used the money to start a Christian global outreach program. So that was effectively the end of the church. A couple months back, though, in February, Pastor Randall organized a sort of church reunion on Zoom, where previous members of the church could hop on and check on each other. I got on the call and everybody was doing their short introductions. My turn came and I gave my intro as if these people had never met me before. Mind you, it's been a good 7 or 8 years since I've last seen a lot of these people in person. So I started, hey everybody, I'm Grant, I live in Buckhead, I'm a senior, I'm getting ready to go to college. They interrupted me, they said, college? College? Oh, look at his hair, listen to his voice, look at how much he's grown. It felt just like a family reunion where you meet back up with a distant aunt or a cousin and they start chiming in and talking about how much you've grown. Interestingly enough, that is exactly what this is. The church is a family where unconditional love and belonging is shown. That is what Christianity offers.